to be able to just make a choice on your own and just be able to speak for yourself.
This one's wife. Would anybody else have her? Roll up, roll up. Well-ridden narcissist on the market. Has freakish eye for detail. Can suck a golf ball through 40 feet of hose pipe. Her thighs are strangers to one another. Spicy poontang on tap. Rogered more times than a policeman's radio. Rattled more times than Banksy's spray can. Cocked more times than John Wayne's Winchester. Fingered more times than David Attenborough's passport. Seen more helmets than Hitler. Shot over more times than Baghdad. Likes money, fame, shiny things, word salad, although the smartest thing that came out of her mouth was a dick. Banged more times than Stevie Wonder's big toe. Dropped more boxers than Mike Tyson. She's now available. That probably wouldn't be the advertisement that would accompany this one's wife were she to come onto the market. But given the repeated speculation about the state of the marriage between her and Harry, and the natural curiosity of people as to what might occur next, one poses the question, in the event that the marriage to Harry founders and the two are cast asunder, would anybody else have her? Well, let's examine what have you got. You've got a woman who is of moderate attractiveness. She's not ugly, but she's not stunning. You could, of course, find fault with the linebacker shoulders and the chicken legs, the ever-changing face, but ultimately, she's reasonable looking. She's not charismatic, she's not talented, but she is famous, or perhaps you'd prefer, infamous. Her financial status, well, that could be a matter of interesting debate. She certainly spends money like it's going out of fashion. And it might be that post-divorce she could be sat with a decent lump of money, but that wouldn't last long. The fact is that disengagement is a common occurrence in the dynamic between narcissist and victim. Sometimes the victim escapes, sometimes neither disengagement nor escape occurs, and the marriage or the relationship between the narcissist and their victim rumbles on until one dies. But if there is an outcome that is more common, it is disengagement. There are 5 disengagement triggers, which I've explained before. I don't need to go through them now. You can look that up separately. One of the most common disengagement triggers is quite simply the narcissist finds somebody else. This happens because the incumbent intimate partner primary source has been painted black. They are viewed as a malfunctioning appliance that isn't serving the needs of the narcissist effectively, which then removes the fetter on the narcissist, allowing them to seek out somebody else. This can lead to numerous affairs and infidelities taking place, but doesn't necessarily mean that the narcissist will leave the incumbent intimate partner primary source. Nevertheless, if the narcissism recognizes that the affair partner is ultimately superior to that of the incumbent IPPS, that will then trigger disengagement. Basically, the narcissist jumps ship and moves to something that is perceived as superior vis-à-vis the provision of the prime aims. Accordingly, it means that there is the potential for this one's wife to leave Harry if her narcissism caused her to ensnare somebody that was a more attractive prospect than him. That would mean, for instance, Harry might have become progressively more difficult to control, so she finds somebody who's more supine than him. It would mean, for instance, that perhaps, for a variety of reasons, Harry's fuel provision has dropped off. It's certainly not as fresh and luscious as it once was, and it may well be that somebody else's fuel provision is not only fresh, but also provided to a greater extent. Key also would be character traits and those all-important residual benefits, one of which would be that the individual would be wealthier than Harry is. Accordingly, that would be what would be required for disengagement to take place. Now, ordinarily, it isn't such a problem for the narcissist to move on to somebody else, because the person that they ensnare not only has no idea that they're dealing with a narcissist, but the reputation of that narcissist is often not known in the environment in which the two are meeting. So, for example, in a city, a narcissist has ensnared somebody, has abused them, that person has worked out that they're bad news, but then they're disengaged from. They may not say anything about what has happened other than within a small circle of friends. Therefore, another victim on the other side of the city has no knowledge about the reputation of this individual. This state of affairs is most common, which allows narcissists to ensnare people with impunity. They're simply not known about. The previous victim, although hurt, either doesn't mention it widely or doesn't have the means of mentioning it widely. Even if they do embark upon some kind of social media campaign to tell everybody about this person being a grade A shit, this is not guaranteed to come to the attention of everybody. This means that other victims will have no knowledge whatsoever about the fact that this is now a narcissist that has abused somebody else and is about to ensnare them. This works in the narcissist's favour. Sometimes in an environment such as a small town, word gets round and the reputation of the narcissist becomes clearer, but then all they do is move to another town or to the next county or state. But this is a problem for this one's wife because she's overexposed. Most people on the planet have heard of her as a consequence of the repeated and incessant reportage of this woman. Unlike many other narcissists that people won't know about, people know about her. Now, some of those individuals will pay very little attention to her. Others will be aware that she has a poor reputation. And therefore, this is problematic for her, because potential suitors may well recognize, no, she's bad news. Leaving aside the fact, of course, that she's of advancing age, that she doesn't really have much in the way of talent or charisma. But the fact is that if she were not overexposed, on first meeting somebody, she would have sufficient about her by virtue of her love bombing to draw them in, particularly with all of the false compassion, false flattery, and lashings of spicy poontang. A head would be turned. Although Harry's a dimwit and susceptible to such overtures, he's not the only one that would be ensnared. However, many people that would be meeting this one's wife would be well aware of who she is and also of her reputation, which means that her overexposure, driven by her narcissism, actually makes it problematic for her to ensnare other people. Thus, the potential pool of individuals that she might be accepted by would be considerably reduced. That stated, there are still potentially two groups that would take her. The first would be individuals of a lower station, so to speak, who would see themselves as getting lucky to have this sexually enthusiastic, moderately attractive woman who is famous be involved with them. They may be rather flattered that somebody of her elevated fame takes an interest in them. The only problem with that is that whilst they might be bowled over by it and therefore being susceptible to ensnarement, this one's wife is less likely to go down that route because her narcissism would see it as trading downwards, and in the circumstances may decide that somebody who isn't famous, who isn't wealthy, who is a Joe Ordinary, wouldn't make for a suitable target for her. Whilst they would be susceptible to being ensnared because they would be flattered by the attention of her and would think, goodness me, someone like her choosing someone like me, wow. And there's plenty of people that would fall within that category. It's less likely that this one's wife would want to choose them because it wouldn't fit with the image that she has of the success that she believes that she's entitled to. This means that she'd be more likely to target wealthy, potentially famous individuals. The problem there is that those individuals will, one, be likely to know what she's like, and two, will also have their pick of more attractive opportunities compared to this one's wife. Younger women, possibly more successful, more educated, kinder women. They would have a choice, and therefore because of her reputation and other factors, that while she might target these individuals because of her narcissism, they would be less likely to have her. The fact is, there are so many people on the planet that there would even be some that would be amongst that category that she would find attractive, who, notwithstanding her reputation, they would think it's possibly exaggerated, that people talk ill of her when they don't really know her. Or the arrogance of thinking, well, I'll be able to deal with that. I can handle it. I can manage it. Even if they were warned about what she is and the way that she's behaved, their own hubris may cause them to think, that's for lesser men. I'm able to deal with her. Harry couldn't handle her. I can. And thus they engage with her. It's certainly the case that her options would be limited compared to other people as a consequence of overexposure, her preceding reputation, her advancing years, and aspects of her personality that have become exposed that don't make her attractive. The options would also be lessened essentially by her choosiness, because she believes there's a certain level of intimate partner primary source that she's suited to, which would discount much of the population. Nevertheless, there would still remain options for her, but just much reduced. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.